Hidden SAS authentication will allow us to hide the knowledge of having to authenticate to Azure Blob Service using a SAS token from our end users. In this demo, we'll switch from using a standard Azure CDN profile to a premium one that allows more sophisticated URL rewriting to enable hidden SAS authentication. After we're done, we'll examine the benefits and drawbacks of this authentication approach. Before we dive in, let's go over what this will look like. Similar to our previously configured pass-through authentication, we'll again have our user, the edge server, and Azure Storage Origin. But unlike last time where the user had to pass the SAS token through Azure CDN, we'll change the flow so that the edge server passes the token on all requests on the user's behalf. It'll do this by appending the token to the incoming URL automatically. Let's configure this now. To be able to use this advanced CDN feature, we'll need to upgrade to a premium CDN profile. In the Azure portal, let's view our storage account and return to the Azure CDN menu we've seen before. As I've demoed already previously, we'll enter our new CDN profile info here, but this time we'll select the premium Verizon pricing SKU, and I've given a different name with the VZ suffix to denote that. Now it might be self-evident by the name, but the premium SKU will definitely cost more than the standard SKU, so please bear that in mind if you're following along. This demo will only cost pennies, but you'll have to run through those cost exercises like we did before with the premium pricing structure to understand how this will impact your bill. I won't go through the rest of this form because, as you can see, I've actually already created this profile for our demo. I did that because the Verizon Premium CDN is not an easy resource to create in real time. It actually takes some minutes to create before it will be available for use. If you do end up requesting the CDN, it will show up here in the endpoint list for our storage account, and if it doesn't, just go ahead and refresh the page. Let's select the one I've already made, and we'll see a very similar blade to our standard CDN, but there's one new menu item now, Advanced Features. Let's go ahead and select that. Here, Azure is telling us we need to use the Supplemental Management portal to manage our CDN. Let's click the Manage button here to navigate over to the Advanced portal to manage our CDN. This is how we'll take advantage of some new features I'll walk through next. Once we're in the Supplemental portal, you'll find the Rules Engine interface under this HTTP large dropdown and then Rules Engine. It's a bit much to cover everything in this portal, so I apologize that I'm only going to focus on the task at hand. In case you want to learn more about how to configure rules with the CDN Rules Engine, you can follow this link to the documentation which will explain how rules work in more detail. This interface may be a bit confusing at first, so let's walk through what we want to do. If you'll recall, we passed the SAS token in the URL to Azure Storage, so that passed through the edge server and onto Azure Storage, so requests were being authenticated. Since we want to effectively hide the SAS token from the end user like our browser here, we need to configure the CDN itself to pass the SAS token in all requests. So we'll use this Rules Engine interface to do that using a technique called URL rewriting. In practice, it's really simple. The engine will inspect the incoming request URL, and if it matches our condition, we'll apply regular expression replace on the URL and pass that through to Azure Storage. Let's start by naming our new rule something descriptive, like append SAS token to static site container requests. Trust me, a good name will come in handy when you start making more of these rules. I'd even suggest adding the SAS token expiration date to the name so you can easily scan the list of rules if you have multiple tokens set up. We'll leave this drop-down option set to always, and you can read this as if always, or if you're a programmer, if true. In other words, run this next set of rules for all requests. Now we'll click this plus button for the features row. This will allow us to configure a CDN rule to execute when this condition matches, which again will be always. The one we're looking for is URL rewrite. URL rewrite is only available if we've selected the always option in this other dropdown. We can't do any other pre-matching before running this. It will then add two new fields on the screen, source and destination. These refer to the incoming URL and what we'd like to rewrite it to. This path in the dropdown first starts with our CDN account name in the top right here, and then the name of our CDN endpoint, so you can ignore that prefix. Everything after that will be whatever the user has typed in after our endpoint URL. Recall we've only set up a SAS token to our static site blob container, so we don't need to apply this rule to all URLs, just ones that include the static site path in them. To match the beginning of our container, we'll use this regular expression, static site /.star. Now you know what they say, right? I had one problem, so I used regex, and now I have two problems. If you don't use regex that much, this expression could seem a little magical, so let's break it down. We're going to use one of my favorite tools whenever I need to write regex. regexer.com. This is a nifty tool that lets you test regular expressions, specifically in JavaScript. Besides a few quirks for specific languages, I use this tool to debug and write regex whenever I find myself in that position. I'm going to clear all the defaults here, and I'm also going to start with a fake path prefix, and because these are forward slashes, we actually need to escape them in JavaScript, but we don't need to escape them when we copy it back over to the other portal. Then let's actually go ahead and add the paths we expect to see in the browser from our users down here in this text area. I'll go ahead and paste them all here. We can see it matched the first part, but we have not yet defined a capture group for the rest of the path. Let's now try to write an expression that matches our static site container. I'll type the literal static site container prefix followed by a literal slash, so I have to escape it. You can see below we're starting to match more of our string. So far so good. But now how can we match the rest of these file paths? They're all different. Well, in regex we can say match any character 0 or more times using .star. I can even hover over each of these parts of the regular expression, and regexer tells me exactly what each token does. Now if we hover over this highlighted portion of the string, we'll see regexer is telling us what it sees as the match. That's pretty cool. Okay, we've matched the rest of the paths now. I'm going to expand this bottom tool panel and show you another neat feature called replace. This will let us type in an expression that regexer can use to replace each match with a new string. I'm going to clear what's there already and type in our static site prefix, and then I'll use the capture group placeholder $1 to use the first capture group match. Cool, it brought the rest of the paths in. Now we'll fake passing a SAS token using a query string and parameter like this. And great, it looks like it's appending the SAS token like we expect to all the incoming paths. Let's copy this expression and then bring it over to the rules engine. I'm going to paste it into the destination, and we're just going to change it to use a real SAS token, so no peeking. Now we're ready to create the rule and test it out, but I'm not actually going to do that. Notice this callout here that it could take quite a long time to actually activate the new rules, and I don't want to take such a long break from recording this demo, so I've already created this rule as shown here for you. Let's go ahead and test our new CDN endpoint now in a new tab. Type it in the endpoint URL with that VZ suffix, and the path to our static site /index.html file. And it worked, we just configured hidden SAS authentication. Let's go over some benefits and drawbacks with the hidden SAS authentication approach. One of the biggest benefits is that we no longer require our users to know our SAS token. It's truly hidden from them. This also means that we no longer need to enable unique query string caching as we did with pass-through authentication, since all matching URLs will use the same token. Additionally, because the rules engine can be more sophisticated, we could have multiple rules using different path expressions to still enable multiple token support if needed. There are certainly some drawbacks though. Even though allowing users to not provide a token is a benefit in our scenario, there are scenarios where you will not want to just give unrestricted access to your container files, but yet you still want to have a private storage account. The other potential drawback is that using these advanced features does require you to pay for a premium CDN profile, which can incur higher costs. You also saw how it can take some time for rules to take effect because they need to be approved. And since we can only manage the rules engine via the portal interface, updating a SAS token in a rule is a manual task. I have seen that Microsoft plans to add API support for supplemental portal features, but as of this recording, that is not available yet. This is a major drawback for automation use cases, so let's hope that's made available soon.